Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. We've got a Necrons episode today and it's one of our Let's Talk series. We're on episode 3 of this series, so if you missed any of these previous episodes, there'll be a playlist for this down in the... where should we find this? It'll be in the playlist on the channel somewhere. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about characters and do we need them? Now, that might seem a bit strange. Do we need characters? Of course we need characters. We need a character to be the Warlord, but what we're talking about today is not so much do we need characters in your list, but do we need characters to lead units. If you've got characters that are sort of 70, 80 to 100 points even, and you've got a minimum unit size of say 3 or 5 that's also about 70 to 100 points, then the argument is instead of just getting a character, you could just get another minimum unit. Will you get more attacks? Will you benefit more in terms of scoring, primaries, secondaries, or will you benefit more from having the character in the unit and not having that extra unit on the side? So we're going to go through all the characters today. They will be in order, alphabetical order, and I'm going to go through what I think their value is, if they're worth taking and in what units to take them with, because there's only a few units that our characters can go with. And I'm going to kind of decide on the fly whether I think they're worth it or not. So that's the long intro out the way. Just to be clear, in fact, this isn't a full review of any of the characters. At the moment we're doing the rate it or hate it kind of stuff. So this isn't any full review. We're not going over the data cards in full detail. I will be skimming in and out of some data cards and some abilities and stats and stuff like that, but nothing too deep. Right, let's start us off with the Chronomancer. Now that's the cheapest of one of the cheaper options, one of the cheaper cryptechs. 50 points and can lead immortals or warriors. Now for this video, in fact, I'm going to assume we're going to be attaching these characters to maximum unit sizes, because that's how you get the most out of these characters. If you've only got a 5-man immortal unit and you're putting a 50 point or a 100 point model with them, it kind of takes away the value even further, which definitely will be added to this argument, I suppose. So we're going to assume we're talking about max size squads here. So if you are talking about immortals, it's 140 points for 10, and the warriors are 200 points for 20. Now of course you're going to get some more value if you're playing the Canoptic Cork, so that cryptech keyword being passed to the unit of immortals or warriors. And of course you've got the enhancement options. Most of the characters in this video are going to have enhancement options, apart from the epic heroes. And the Chronomancer has a few extra things. I mean, it's got the -1 to hit them at range and in melee, which is cool, and the move, shoot, move ability, which is quite a cool trick to do. You definitely can catch your opponent out. I mean, the Aeon Stave it's carrying is a little bit so-so. It's not great, so you're not getting much value out of that. But let's talk about the actual units it's going to be leading. The Chronomancer is going to be leading, let's say for example, the Immortals. So you're paying 50 points for your Chronomancer and you're paying 140 points for your 10 Immortals. So if you math that out, it's pretty much like paying 5 extra points per Immortal. So instead of being 14 points a man, they're 19 points a man. Or with the Warriors, it's like paying an extra 2.5 points ahead. So instead of paying 10 points ahead, it's 12.5 points ahead. So sometimes you can look at it like that and think, if I had the option of paying 2.5 points per warrior for a 20-man warrior brick, would I like the ability for the -1 to hit and the move, shoot, move ability? That's pretty much what we're getting at with this, well, in the entire video itself, but the Chronomancer in particular, those 2 abilities. Like we said, the range weapon is a bit meh, I'm not going to add that, and the enhancement option is an option, but you've got to pay more points for that anyway. Now the moving after shooting ability on a unit that's got 2 OC per model is brilliant. It really is brilliant. I mean, that alone is a pretty big deal. I mean, the -1 to hit is a nice bonus, but the move, shoot, move can literally do so much. If your warriors and your immortals are moving 5 inches, and then you go move in an additional 5 inches, that's a minimum of 10 inches of movement while you're still firing. And of course, it gets even more crazy if you've got like Tesla carbines on the immortals, because they can also advance, as an example. Now, another way to look at this is, if you take the Chronomancer's points, 50 points, right? And you get an extra 20 points more to make 70. You could literally just buy 5 more immortals. 5 more immortals that can do their own movement, their own shooting attacks, their own secondary scoring, and you could just advance them just for the speed. I mean, we already kind of said it a minute ago. If you want to advance them, you can. If they've got Tesla, great. If they have the Ghost weapons, okay, they're not going to be shooting, but you can still get them to where they want to go with the OC. So it's an alternate option as opposed to a Chronomancer, and you could argue it's a better option. Extra 10 OC, complete separate unit, secondaries, doing actions, all sorts. It's got a lot of benefits to it. I mean, I think 50 points is quite cheap for a character. I mean, if you're using the Canoptic Court as an example, which is probably our best detachment, then it's definitely worth it, right? I mean, you're gaining the Cryptek keyword. Even if you're using the Awakened Dynasty and you're just adding a Chronomancer to, say, some warriors, that's going to unlock Command Protocol, so +1 to hit for the entire unit just for that character. I mean, yes, you could do it with a Royal Warden, which is cheaper, but if you still wanted the Chronomancer buffs, you've got them. Also, with the Hypercrypt Legion, he brings his own added bonuses as well. If you're using the Cosmic Precision stratagem, and you've just hyperphased some Immortals out, you bring them back in with the stratagem Cosmic Precision, 3 inches away from enemy units, you're going to shoot, and then you're going to move onto the objective. So that 3 inches is going to be completely gone. I mean, you're going to be on the objective at this point, providing that you've made space, you've shot the unit, maybe you've needed another unit to shoot them off, but you've now got onto the objective from strategic reserves, which was guarded. So that's another little neat trick you can do. I think overall the Chronomancer is worth the 50 points. Whatever detachment you use, and whether it's Immortals or Warriors, I think he works. I mean, some of you may think, well, Warriors, what's the point? But when you've got 20 Warriors all spread out and OC2 per head, you could be holding multiple objectives, just spreading everywhere out, denying deep strike, denying your opponent its movement, your restricted movement. It's a really big deal. So yeah, the Chronomancer definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Now, Imotekh The Stormlord, he's next. He's 100 points and he can lead Immortals, Warriors and Lich Guard. Now, Imotekh is a little bit of a different case because he doesn't really buff the unit in any shape or form. I mean, the main reason you take Imotekh is for the CP farming, isn't it? You gain 1 CP per turn. So, if you look at it this way, like if he survives all 5 turns, it's 20 points per turn for the CP. Plus, he's got the additional damage output as well, I suppose. He's got his range weapons, his melee weapon, and the Lord of Storm ability as well for the mortal wounds. So, as far as Necron infantry go, it's that's a decent amount of output, really, for damage. It's quite difficult to put up what he brings and compare it to just adding another unit of, like, Immortals, because, like I said, he doesn't bring much to the unit. So the real question is, do you just want the extra CP every battle round, or do you want the 100 points? That's the real question, which isn't really what we're talking about today. But I mean, for that 100 points, you can maybe buy a minimum unit of Ophidian Destroyers, a couple more Lokhust Heavy Destroyers potentially. So you've got an option there. I mean, the issue with Imotekh, there's another issue here, is he needs protecting. So he does have to go into a unit, otherwise he's just going to get shot out in the open. And if you put him with, say, for example, 10 Necron Immortals, then he's taken up the spot of a Royal Warden or a Noble. So you can't be using an Overlord or a Royal Warden within that Immortals unit, because they've already got Imotekh The Stormlord in there. You can, of course, still add a Cryptek, because Crypteks have the ability to do that. So it's not all bad. Most of the buffs actually come from the Crypteks, I think, anyway. So it's not all bad. Is he worth it? I'm on the fence with Imotekh The Stormlord. I mean, if you're planning on going stratagem heavy in your game, then 100% is worth it. He's giving you CP every turn, and that's obviously a major factor to your plan. But if you're not going CP heavy, I'd rather keep the points and buy something else. Next, we've got the Lokhust Lord, 80 points Lokhust Lord. He could lead Lokhust Destroyers and Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. Now, this one is an interesting one because, in fact, this may be the most interesting one of the video. A lot of people like the Lokhust Lord, including myself. Not only does it bring a Resurrection Orb, which is cool, but he's also bringing the Destroyer Cult ability for the 5+ critical hit rolls, which is effectively like a Destroyer Plasmancer, isn't it? Now, you can swap out the Resurrection Orb for a Feel No Pain save, but we're purely discussing leading a unit, so you're not going to do that in this situation. You're going to take the Resurrection Orb every time. Now, speaking about Lokhust Destroyers to begin, 180 points for 6 models, so you definitely take all 6. Why wouldn't you? So you're basically adding 13.3 points per head which will make the 80 points, just to gain the extra buffs, the extra 5+ critical hits buffs and the Resurrection Orb. And I suppose the damage output, if there is any. Now these guys have got their own ways of re-rolling hit rolls, which means you can actually fish for those 5+ rolls. Because if you're re-rolling, you may as well re-roll the 3s and the 4s as well. You may as well go for the 5+s, because every single one of those will be a lethal hit. You may as well go for it. Now the unit itself has 18 shots, and without the Lokhust Lord, you're going to have an average of 3 lethal hits there. 18 divided by 6-sided dice would be 3. So 3 lethal hits on average, but that will become 6 lethal hits if you've got the Lokhust Lord within the unit, because now 5s are also good. You're of course not doing any of the rerolls at this point, so you're going to get even more. But that alone probably isn't worth the 80 points. I mean, it can be, it's debatable. I personally don't think it is. The Resurrection Orb on top is a nice little added extra bonus, but I think what defines the Lokhust Lord is the detachment and possibly the enhancements as well. I mean, if you look at the detachments, you've got the Awakened Dynasty for starters. So now the Locust Destroyers are hitting on 2s, not 3s. And again, you're fishing. Maybe you're taking the Veil of Darkness relic within that detachment, so you can deep strike or pull them off the battlefield, bring them back in on your opponents on your next turn, and get behind a nice juicy target. Maybe you're playing the Hypercrit Legion and you can hyperphase them or even deep strike them with the Austroclave Falcon enhancement. So there's lots of little options and little gimmicks for each detachment that probably work pretty well with the Locust Destroyers with the 5+ critical hit rolls. Now, as for the Locust Heavy Destroyers being led, these guys are 150 points for 3 for the unit. Now instead of having a Lord, you could just add 20 points and get 2 more Locust Heavy Destroyers. So you've got to map that out, you've got to think about that. Do I really want the 5+ critical hit rolls, or should I just take 2 more? Sometimes it helps to just take more models. Now with the Ghost Destructors, I think the Lokhust Lord is completely pointless in my opinion. He doesn't add anything to the unit. Yes, you're going to have critical hit rolls of a 5+ on your Ghost Destructors. I don't think you need it. The strength is high and you've only got 3 shots anyway. However, with the Exterminators, it completely changes drastically because, I mean, they're getting 12 shots per model within rapid fire range. They're heavy, so you can be hitting on 2s naturally. On average, without the Lokhust Lord even being there, you would get 36 hits from your 36 shots. Because you're hitting on 2s, all the 1s you're missing, but of course all the 6s are sustained hits 1, so you're pretty much getting those 1s back. 36 from 36 is really good. Now when you do add the Lokhust Lord, it becomes 42, because 5+ rolls are now sustained hits as well, so you're going to get 42 hits from 36 shots. You're of course re-rolling 1s whether the Lokhust Lord is there or not, and that's going to be against non-monsters and vehicles, or non-monsters and non-vehicles, so your infantry, mounted, swarm, beast and so on. You're rolling 1s to wound. Now if you get the Hypercrit Legion detachment, you can amplify this even further, because you can take the Horizon Tyrant enhancement on the Lokhust Lord, if you took the Lokhust Lord that is, to get all the re-rolls to hit when you enter the battlefield, which you would be with hyperphasing. Now you definitely would be fishing for 5s and 6s, because you're re-rolling everything. If it isn't a 5+, you roll it. That's an average of about 20 5s and 6s after your re-rolls, which will then equate to 40 hits because of the sustained hits 1. Don't forget you still have a loads of 2s, 3s and 4s that still did hit, so there'll probably be about 4 1s in there, which I've missed unfortunately. But in total, when you add those 2s, 3s and 4s to the 5s and 6s and sustained hits and all that stuff, you're going to get about 60 hits from 36 shots, which is insane. And then you're going to be re-rolling 1s to wound as well, so they literally just murder anything. They're so good. I mean, that was the Hypercrit Legion, the Awakened Dynasty again with the +1 to hit. They don't need it because they've got heavy, but you can now move, and the heavy keyword doesn't matter because you're still going to be hitting on 2s. And the Veil of Darkness as well, we already mentioned it with the Locust Destroyers, also works with the Exterminator Destroyers as well. So yeah, if you're taking the Lokhust Lord, definitely worth it with the Exterminator weapons, not so much with the Destructors. Next we've got Orikan The Diviner. He's leading Immortals and Warriors, or all Warriors, and he's 80 points. He's got a pretty decent damage output, to be honest with you, especially when he's got his stars aligned ability that goes off. But Immortals and Warriors don't really want to get within engagement range. They can do it, but they don't really want to be there. They're a shooty unit within engagement range they can't actually fire. There's no pistols or anything. Now the real reason you're taking Orikan The Diviner is for the 4+ invulnerable save. So a unit of 20 warriors with a 4+ invulnerable save, that is pretty effective. A unit of 10 immortals with toughness 5 with a 3+ armor with a 4+ invulnerable save is also pretty good. Again, if you divide Orikan's points cost by the unit, then you're looking at about 4 points extra per warrior, or 8 points extra per immortal if you're taking 10 immortals or 20 warriors. So you've got to math it out that way. Are you prepared to pay 4 points per warrior to gain an invuln save? It's a shout, isn't it? It's a shout. 8 points for an immortal for an invuln save. Not sure on that one. I mean, I think the immortals, it's probably a little bit too much. 22 points a model. He's also taken up an important slot, which is the triptych spot within the unit. So there'll be no Plasmancers, no Technomancers, no Chronomancers, and so on. And there'll be no enhancement unless you're taking like an Overlord or something. But that's another argument in itself. I mean, the cheaper Technomancer, in fact, is another debate because it's only 60 points and he brings a 5+ feel no pain save, which is arguably better on an immortal unit. He's also more expensive than just taking 5 more immortals, in fact. If you just took 5 more immortals, that's 70 points, not 80 points. And again, they can independently do their own thing. They can shoot, they can score, tie up targets, and anti-deep strike, all that kind of stuff on their own. Whereas if you've got Orikan within a unit, you've got one less unit to deal with, or to use rather. Now they've got toughness 5 with a 3+ armor save, then the 4+ invulnerable save. But what you need to remember is this is only going to interact with weapons that have got -2 AP or more. Because if it's like -1 AP, it's just going to go to a 4+ armor save. Don't need the armor save. So it's only when there's -2 AP where it would normally go to a 5+ armor save, but it will stop at the 4+ invulnerable save. So if your opponent is going to be using up high AP weapons on immortals, I'm not too unhappy about that. Of course, there's factions that have it all, the entire list is just -1, -2. Sometimes you do come across that, that's fine. But then you got to also remember, like, things that, if you're being shot at range, there's cover save as well. So you're going to get some extra saves on your cover. And cover is, well, it's all over the place, isn't it? It's all over the place. With warriors, I think it is much better. You're virtually playing like a horde unit. You've got 20 Necron warriors there. OC2 per model. All with an M1 save for 4 points ahead, which is 14 points a model. Now for 20 points more, yes, you could just buy 10 more warriors, but to be honest, I'm not that keen on playing just 10 warriors. They go down quick. So for warriors in 20s, would I consider Orikan The Diviner? Yeah, definitely. I think it's worthwhile on a horde type of unit. For immortals, not for me personally, not for me. I'd rather take the more aggressive, the Chronomancers and the Plasmancers. Moving on to the Overlord, as well as the Overlord with the Translocation Shroud. I'm going to do these two at the same time. They've got virtually the same stuff. There's a couple of differences. 85 points is for, well, both of them are 85 points each. They can go with Immortals, Lich Guard, or Warriors, and there's of course benefits of taking them. So you've got the Resurrection Orbs, which are cool, and you've got the extra damage output from maybe the Overlord's Blade or the Staff of Light, whatever weapon you're taking, or the Tacking Arrow, in fact. If you're playing Tacking Arrow, which is quite a rarity, unless you're playing the Obeisance Phalanx or something, it's quite a rare one. But the reason you're taking the Overlord is for the free battle tactic stratagem use per battle round. So any battle tactic stratagem on any of the units that it's leading, it's going to be completely free, which is good. Now there of course are extra perks for taking the Shrouded Overlord, because he can do his advancing through models and terrain, auto advancing 6 inches and so on. So that's going to work quite nicely with Immortals with the Tesla Carbines, because they want to advance, because they can still fire. I mean, if you're using Immortals or Warriors with the Gorse, it's not so useful unless you're playing the Awakened Dynasty and you're using the Protocol of Sunstorm. Then you can add the Assault keyword on, so it wouldn't be so bad then. Also, it's going to be working on the Sword and Shield Lich Guard, because they don't really want to fire. They just want to get onto the objective and sit and hold tight, put the shields up and say come at me, because that's what they do and they're good at it. So it can work with them as well. But like I said, it's really about the battle tactic stratagems that are completely free to use, and I'm going to mention a couple of them for you now. A couple from the Obeisance Phalanx, because the Overlords are obviously most useful in that detachment. Enslaved Artifice for 5+ critical hit rolls, so you don't need a Plasmancer. You don't need to spend the point, you've got it for free there with an Overlord. And again with the Abasis Phalanx, suffer no rival. For Lich Guard being led, they can gain precision. So you can go character hunting, maybe you want to score assassination, just get rid of a leader, you can do that. From the Awakened Dynasty, the Protocol of Conquering Tyrant to reroll all hit rolls at half range. That alongside a Plasmancer could be really fun, especially with the Tesla Carbines. 5+ critical hit rolls, sustain hits 2, rerolling everything. Definitely be fishing there. And there's also core stratagems, in fact, from the core rules, such as command reroll. Everybody likes to use a command reroll time to time, it'll be completely free. They can even go to ground. I mean, I don't really use that one that often, but you could use go to ground, which gives you the 6+ invulnerable save and a cover save. Could be handy. Could be handy, maybe on your warriors, perhaps. Could work. I've not really used it that often. So for 85 points, you're getting a decent amount of perks. Obviously, with a minimum unit, it's not worth it. But a maximum unit, potentially, yes. I mean, if you're playing the Abasis Phalanx again, then 100% is worth it, because he's going to give the Overlord keyword to your Immortals or your Warriors. The Lich Guard don't need it, because they've got the Lich Guard keyword. That works just the same. Now, if you're talking about Warriors, it's 4.25 extra points per head, if you want to look at it like that, and you want to break it down. And for Immortals, it's 8.5 per head. With Lich Guard, it's 17 points per head, so it's quite a lot more. And you could literally buy 5 more Lich Guard models for his points, because 5 Lich Guard are 85 points. So there's that argument there. Would I rather take 5 Lich Guard independently, or would I rather take an Overlord with a unit of Lich Guard, or a unit of whatever? It's an argument. I think you need to get the right loadout and the right combination to make him work. Like Tesla Carbine Immortals with the Translocation Shroud Overlord virtually gives them 11 inches of movement, because you can advance 6 inches. If you add a Chronomancer into the mix as well, that's a further 5 inches after firing as well, and a free battle tactic stratagem on top of that, alongside the -1 to hit them, and the Resurrection Orb. The Resurrection Orb is definitely worth its weight. I mean, speaking of the Resurrection Orb, let's just talk about that usage in itself, because I think it can be underestimated, this Resurrection Orb. It's D6, not D3 to start us off. If you roll high, that could be 6 Immortals just coming back if you roll a 6. That's 84 points in itself. If you roll a 6 with the Warriors, that's 60 points coming back, and they get to re-roll that dice as well, don't forget, because of their ability. Lich Guard is slightly different because they're 2 wound models. If you roll that 6, that's going to be 3 Lich Guard popping back, that's worth 51 points. So the Res Orb alone will return some of the Overlord's points cost back to you. I mean, if you roll an average of 3 or 4, that's the average D6 roll. That's still going to be like 42 to 56 points of Immortals, 30 to 40 points of Warriors, 17 to 34 points of Lich Guard on average. So the Res Orb effectively covers half the Overlord's actual points cost, if you think about it like that. And then when you add all the other perks to the mix with the free stratagems and stuff, definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. Onto the Plasmancer, 55 points, another cheap cryptech to boost your shooty battle line units. 5+ critical hit rolls, as you know, and that's the main reason to field him, in fact. I mean, he also does bring a bit of damage output with his lance and his living lightning ability. I mean, the living lightning ability alone will score 2 mortal wounds on average every single turn, within range, of course. It won't be every turn. It could be every turn. Sometimes it isn't every turn. It's enough to wipe out a single 16-point intercessor, as an example. So if you do that for 3 turns, he virtually pays for himself just from that one ability alone. If you can use it every turn, that is. Now the critical hit thing though is pretty huge, whether it's on sustained hits 2 with the Tesla, whether it's on lethal hits with the Gorse weapons, both massively gonna gain from the 5+ critical hit rolls. I mean, in the Canoptic Court you can be giving full rerolls to those units if you're within your power matrix, or just rerolling ones is fine as well. I mean, Immortals in particular is extra good because they also reroll their wound rolls, so there's a lot of rerolls there with a lot of dice. Sustained hits 2 with the Tesla in particular. There's a lot there. You can add the Hyperphasic Fulcrum, which will give the Warriors reroll 1s to wound. That's the enhancement you can give. You wouldn't apply that to Immortals because they already do that anyway, but if you're taking Warriors with a Plasmancer, that's the way they can reroll wound rolls of a 1. You can also take the Arisen Tyrant from the Hypocrite Legion, so to give them full rerolls on entry. The Awakened Dynasty, of course, unlocks a +1 to the hit roll if he's the only leader within that unit. Now, maybe even a cheeky Veil of Darkness as well with your Warriors and Immortals. Is he worth it? 100% the Plasmancer is worth it. I think he's one of the best cryptechs, and he can still be brought alongside a Noble as well, which makes him just as good. So I would definitely say the Plasmancer is worth it. Only 55 points. I think it's a bargain. The Psychomancer, on the other hand, is not so much of a bargain. 55 points again, so he's the exact same points cost as a Plasmancer, oddly. He's going to be boosting your shooty battle line units. Well, I say boosting, very, very loosely. Let's cut to the chase. Does he have some cool abilities? Yes, he does. He pushes battle shock tests to a selected unit within 18, and it's a -1 to that test, or +1 to that test, whatever way around that is. And also in your opponent's command phase, he can make them do a battle shock test if they're within 6 inches, and again, it's worsening their test by 1. Helpful, I suppose, to deny scoring primaries, some of the secondaries like overwhelming force or firepower. What's it called? Overwhelming. You know the one. Maybe it's no man's land, maybe it's trying to do an action like cleanse. If they're battle shocked, they can't do it. So it can assist with doing that kind of stuff. Also stratagems, you can't be using stratagems on the unit if they're battle shocked. So can he assist with stuff like that? Yeah, of course. Does it mean he's worth it? Hell no, no way. He literally takes the place of an actual buffing cryptech. He's taken the place of your Technomancer or your Chronomancer, your Plasmancer, even Orikan The Diviner, I suppose. I mean, even if he's not there, enemies can still fail their battle shock. If they're under half strength in their command phase, they can still fail battle shock. Okay, you've not got the negative modifier to it, and you're not forcing it upon them every now and then, but to be honest, I don't really want him within 6 inches of an enemy unit anyway, especially if he's going with shooter units with warriors or immortals. I don't want him there. So yeah, he's just not worth it. It almost seems like he's got Tyrannid kind of buffs and bonuses. A lot of Tyrannid characters have that kind of stuff with battle shock, but it suits their style, not so much Necrons. Next we've got the Royal Warden, 40 points. He's the cheapest character within the Codex. Feels more like a piece of war gear, he's that cheap. With 10 Immortals, it's virtually 4 points ahead, and with 20 Warriors, it's 2 points ahead, if you want to do it like that. Now, he turns off Battle Shock for a unit within 12 inches once per battle. I mean, that ability alone is worth more than what the Psychomancer actually brings, and that's not even his main party piece. His main trick is to allow a unit to fall back and shoot, or fall back and charge, or both, whatever you want to do. I mean, they are a gunline infantry unit. They don't really want to charge in most situations, but they can do so, and it will allow them to fight first after you've shot at them as well. So it can reduce OC potentially if you charge back in. It might get more feet onto objectives as well if you charge back in as well. So it's a little bit of a trick you can do with the Royal Warden. He's worth it 100%. However, he takes up the slot of a Noble. So that basically means you're Overlords. So if you want to have a Resurrection Orb in there, or you want a free battle tactic stratagem in your unit, you can't have both. You can't have the Royal Warden with all that stuff. You've got to have the Royal Warden or the Overlords. That's a little bit more of a debate, to be honest with you. I mean, we're not going to be debating characters versus characters in this video, but the debate really is, does a unit need a Royal Warden within the unit? I think for 40 points, he's just like an enhancement. That's how he feels to me. You put him on Immortals. I mean, Immortals are a powerhouse right now. They do so much. You definitely want them to be shooting every single battle round. You don't want them locked in engagement range and not firing for a turn. With Warriors, you just want them alive because they're clogging up the battlefield. OC 2 per model, 20 bodies. You don't want them in risky fight phases that they don't need to be in. So being able to fall back and firing on top of that for virtually 2 points per man, 2 points per Necron warrior, if you've got 20 of them, it's massively going to help with the OC struggle on objectives as well. So Royal Wardens, of course, I think are worth it, depending on whether you don't want an Overlord or not. I mean, the other option, in fact, is the fact that they can take enhancements. I know most of these characters can, but it's a real cheap way of getting an enhancement within a unit. So that's something else to think about. And even if you don't want to be bringing enhancements, let's say you're playing the Awakened Dynasty, you want to get the +1 to the hit rolls, right? And the cheapest way to get the +1 to the hit rolls, or the cheapest character, is a Royal Warden. So you can just have 3 Royal Wardens with 3 units to have the cheapest way of getting command protocols. Next we've got the Skorpekh Lord for 100 points. Interesting, as he costs the same as a minimum unit of the same unit that he actually leads, which is the Skorpekh Destroyers, 100 points for 3. He brings enhancements to the table if you wanted to. Maybe it's the Veil of Darkness relic from the Awakened Dynasty, which would also grant a +1 to the hit roll for Skorpekh Destroyers as well. Or we could use a Soulless Reaper option with the Annihilation Legion to prevent enemy units from falling back potentially. More fight phases for your Skorpekh Destroyers, I suppose. Now he's going to be granting the unit lethal hits, and he also throws out mortal wounds on the charge. And not only that, he's got a slightly better set of weaponry, both at range and in melee, for his 100 points. Now if you're comparing him to his own unit, because you've got the option of, well, I can save 100 points with my Skorpekh Lord by not taking it and have 3 extra Skorpekh Destroyers. That's the kind of comparison I'm going to make now. If you are to take the Skorpekh Destroyers, that's going to be 12 more attacks at strength 7 with 2 damage a pop. They're toughness 6 with a 3+ armor, 3 wounds each. Now the Skorpekh Lord is toughness 7, but when he's with the unit he's only toughness 6 anyway, because you go with the bodyguard's toughness. He's only got 7 wounds, which doesn't equate to 9, but he does have the invulnerable save of a 4+. So I think I'd prefer the 7 wounds, to be honest. Now his lethal hits ability is kind of counterproductive with what the destroyers actually do, the Skorpekh Destroyers, because they've got the option of using their Plasmancer, which gives them devastating wounds. You can't use devastating wounds on anything that's scored a lethal hit because you're not physically rolling to wound, so therefore you can't roll a critical wound roll. So it's a little bit counterproductive, but I mean, there's no harm in having both the abilities. In fact, it's still a good thing, but it doesn't quite go together. The only way I kind of see Skorpekh Destroyers is having a unit of 6 of them with the Lord. I think that's the best way. There's a lot of output in terms of damage. But the question is, do the Skorpekh Destroyers actually need the Skorpekh Lord? Now with the reroll ability, the Skorpekh Destroyers on average, well, with 6 of them, would kill around 10 intercessors. So if you're taking a minimum of 3 Destroyers, that on average would kill 5. Because the reason I'm taking 3 is because that's how much the Skorpekh Lord costs, and I'm trying to compare them. 3 Destroyers are killing 5 Intercessors. If you add a Lord to a 6-man unit, you're going to be killing an extra 1 or 2 with lethal hits. I mean, it could be more if you're playing the Awakened Dynasty, but I'm just doing any detachment for the moment. So a couple more maybe with lethal hits. He then is going to do his own damage with his own melee weapon, which is damage 3. He probably kills about 3 more on average there. And then his Mortal Wounds ability on the charge, if he does charge, you've got a chance of maybe killing 1 there. So on his own, he's killing 5 models, which is the equivalent of what the Skorpekh Destroyers did. But the difference is when you pair a Skorpekh Lord with the 6 Destroyers, that will actually go from 5 to about 7, 6 or 7 approximately. That's because of the lethal hits. So I'd say it's worth it, but only when you're going full max Skorpekh Destroyer units with Skorpekh Lord, which is obvious, you wouldn't do that. The question was, would you just take him out and have another unit of 3? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't, because you're getting an extra couple more deaths or a couple more kills when he's actually in the unit. It goes to 7 because of lethal hits, so yeah. Right, we're on to the Technomancer next. 60-point Technomancer. He can go with Canoptic Wraiths, Immortals, or Warriors. He's going to be bringing the 5+ Feel No Pain save, and he's also able to heal unit D3 lost wounds in the movement phase as well. It doesn't even need to be within the same unit, in fact, it's within 6 inches. So the 5+ Feel No Pain save alone is worth 60 points in my opinion. It literally saves a third of the wounds pool each time. It also helps stop Warriors and Immortal units from getting wiped out in one, which then means you've got an opportunity to pull out a Resurrection Orb with your Overlord maybe, or on your Command Barge even. Or even just get into your own turn and using Reanimation Protocols. Now, what you do with him though, as most people do right now, is you stick him with Canoptic Wraiths. With the Canoptic Wraiths, they almost become unbreakable, because they've got toughness 6 with 4+ invulnerable save, 4 wounds, now a 5+ Feel No Pain save on top. I say this every time, they can shoot, they can fight, they can move and do mortal wounds, they're quick, they're canoptic, so the canoptic core power matrix is unleashed. Now for your Wraiths, if you divide the points cost of your Technomancer by 6, it's obvious, isn't it? 10 points per head, or 10 points extra per Wraith, if you want to look at it in that way, to give them a 5+ Feel No Pain save. I think that's worth it. Definitely think that's worth it. It just keeps them going and going and going. And don't forget as well, if you do get to survive till your turn, which you really should be with Wraiths, we've just said it all, the wound characteristics and the toughness. When you get to your turn, you're going to be using your Reanimation Protocols, You're then going to be healing because of the Technomancer's ability, D3, so it's almost like 2d3 wounds recovered by the time you get to your movement phase. There's actually further ways to do it with the Canoptic Court stratagem. Suboptimal Facade. If your Canoptic unit got charged, you can use reanimation protocols then as well. So there's other ways to use reanimation protocols. If you are using the Canoptic Court, you definitely should have 3 units of Wraiths, full units, and 3 Technomancers leading the Wraiths. Just watch out for epic challenges though, because a decent player will want to go with precision or epic challenge. You know, whether it's death marks or whether it's eliminators, whatever else they've got in terms of precision weapons, they will want to take out the Technomancer first. So you've got to watch out for that. But is he worth it? 1,000,000% the Technomancer is worth it. The last one in this list today is Trazyn The Infinite. 75 point model, he's a cheap Overlord, although he hasn't got the Overlord keyword, for whatever reason. Boo. Double boos because he's an epic hero, so no enhancements either. Stinky. Now he can lead Immortals, Warriors and Lich Guard, and he gives the unit sticky objectives, which I do like that ability. It's a cool ability, it's just on a really crappy model. Now for 5 points less, you can just buy 5 more Immortals, which could just stay on that sticky objective and shoot off it. So I think that's instantly a better option. Why wouldn't you just do that? Because you're not gaining any other buffs for the unit. So you may as well just buy 5 more Immortals, save 5 points, have 5 Immortals shooting out, have 10 OC on the objective. You're going to be blocking Deep Strike and all that jazz. Why put all your eggs in one basket? It makes no sense. In fact, for 25 points more, you can get 10 Warriors. Not advised, I'm just putting it out there. But that's 20 OC, if you ever wanted 20 OC. For 10 points more than Trazyn, so 85 points, you can get 5 Lich Guard with Sword and Shields. Again, they can just sit on the objective instead of stickying it with Trazyn and his Immortals. You can just sit there with 5 Lich Guard with Sword and Shields and just stay there. Just a better option. All 3 are better options in my opinion, even the Warriors. Even getting 10 Warriors for 25 points more. Now there are some non-related janky rules with the Surrogate Host's ability, because technically he can be taking the spot of a Cryptek. So you've got your Immortals, and let's say you've got a Plasmancer and you've got a Necron Overlord in that unit, and they're on the complete other side of the battlefield, and you chose to use the Surrogate Host ability, maybe because Trazyn The Infinite's got, I don't know, 1 wound left. You've just used reanimation protocols, I don't know why you would be, but whatever. He's on 2 wounds, and you want to use Surrogate Host. You can take the place of the Plasmancer. So now all of a sudden that Immortal unit has got Trazyn The Infinite and an Overlord both leading that same unit, which is normally an illegal move. I don't know if you call that a move. When you're determining who's leading a unit, it would be classed as illegal, but this ability kind of allows it to be bypassed. Not that you gain much from that. I mean, you gain sticky objectives, I suppose, and if it's a Translocation shrouded Overlord, that can do the advanced thingamajig. And you've got, I don't know, Tesla Immortals that are going to advance 6 inches now through models and still fire. And you've also got sticky objectives, so you can literally get the objective, shoot what's there and bugger off somewhere because it's now sticky, because Trazyn's there. And there are some really funky stuff you can do. But, I mean, I'm waffling a little bit. To be totally blunt, is he worth it? 100 million trillion % no. Just get another Immortal unit for 5 Immortals, 70 points. Let them be where the sticky objective is. You're not going to go around sticky in 3 or 4 objectives. You're not. You're just not. All the units that he goes with are too slow. They're going 5 inches. I mean, maybe in the Hypercrypt you could sticky them, but I believe it happens in the command phase, which it does. To the end of your command phase, you're going to sticky it. But if you're in the Hypercrypt Legion and you've hyperphased, you're not coming back in until the reinforcement step of your movement phase. So you've missed it. You've missed the command phase, so you therefore cannot sticky the objective. If they changed his ability to be allowed to sticky an objective at any time, then we're talking. Then we're talking a bit. We can then hyperphase him and keep sticky and stuff, take him out, do it again, do it again. Then we're talking. But in its current form, no. So guys, that's the end of the episode today, episode 3. If you've missed the other previous episodes, go back and check them out. I think one of them was to do with the Necron's Night Scythe, and the other one was the pros and cons for each Necron detachment. So if you missed those, go and check them out as well, and make sure you are giving me a thumbs up on your exits. Guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.